Yesterday, he told us he had no playbook. Okay. He was also asked about the turnaround. 18 points in the first half, no points in the second half against the Jets. Well, wouldn't you know it? The Jets somehow, magically, surprised the Philadelphia Eagles. What? They surprised the Philadelphia Eagles. Everybody thought, oh, Gardner Minshew, it'll surprise the Jets. And it did. But it turns out the Jets defense weren't the only ones that were a little surprised at what was happening. Apparently, the Eagles defense was also surprised at what the Jets were doing. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know if they're doing anything different than what they had done before. They got great field position with the great kick return. The special teams allowed, obviously. But I don't know what the Jets were doing that really caught them so off guard. But here's Jonathan Gannon when he was asked about what changed from the first half to the second half in Sunday's game against the Jets.
What changed is the game kind of started a little odd, them being where they were, and you'd like to keep them to a field goal there, and we didn't. And then, how they attacked us early. They did a couple things that I didn't, really in my mind thought that they were going to attack us. They attacked us a little bit differently than I thought, honestly. So when we came off there, then, we talked about it as a staff. It was, hey, we got to make some adjustments here. What calls do we need to get to? How do we got to start playing to kind of stop the bleeding? And what I'm very proud about, we had a meeting yesterday with our players, and even as the game didn't go as we wanted it to, as it didn't start the way we wanted it to start, obviously, there was no panic, good resilience by our guys, and they said, okay, well, what are we going to play? What are we going to run? And let's start executing at a higher level. And JG, you do a better job, and we'll do a better job, and we'll get this thing turned around. So it was good to see us, kind of get rolling when we did, because we needed to.
So the Jets were shocking in what they did in that first. They got great field position. Then they marched down the field again, and they scored another touchdown. And the Eagles couldn't come to the goal line stand. They had some opportunities to get into the backfield and maybe wreak some havoc, and they didn't capitalize on that. I thought it was a lot more of the typical Jonathan Gannon-style defense where you're not really attacking the quarterback and trying to force him into mistakes, as we talked about last week going into the game. But they apparently were a little surprised. And that's what took them off. I see already the comments, if I could, I would. If I could, would you? Saying that Jonathan Gannon sounds as lost as Sirianni. There you go. And he also says, what changed is that the Jets sucked. I don't really think you're that far off. But the thing that really jumps out to me, aside from that little thing about how, hey, look, on any given, I don't know if you guys ever heard this before, on any given Sunday, you're going to win or you lose, whatever. Well, yeah, sometimes even bad teams like the Jets or the Lions or whoever can jump out and all of a sudden catch you off guard. That can happen. I mean, they're getting paid too, to use another cliche. But the thing that really stuck out to me in that soundbite, and really during the press conference, and it just had my mind rattling, was the fact that he had a meeting with his players about what they were doing in that game and what they plan on doing going forward. And the overall outcome, as he paraphrases there, was, JG, you do a better job, we'll do a better job, and together we'll all be better. And I do wonder if in those meetings, because let's just backtrack for a second here. After that Raiders game, Fletcher Cox comes out and says, I'm not the defensive coordinator. It's not up to me to talk about this. Yet I'm a leader. Well, I thought leaders were supposed to keep that open line of communication with their coaches or their coordinators. I guess that didn't happen. But in this particular case, and JG did say, oh, God, now I'm calling him JG. Jonathan Gannon did say that he did have a conversation with Fletcher Cox. I really haven't seen much change in the defense since then. But you did have a couple of games where you started to be a little bit more aggressive percentage-wise in terms of when you were blitzing, how many times you were blitzing the opposing quarterback, which was good. They didn't really see anything different in this particular game against the Jets. But then Jonathan Gannon comes out with that quote about another meeting with players about what they need to do and how they need to make adjustments. Well, whatever happened at halftime, that game seemed to work because they didn't allow any points. They didn't allow nearly as many yards. So they actually stepped up defensively in that game to make the proper adjustments. And just like we said yesterday about Nick Sirianni saying that Devontae Smith didn't get as many snaps as Jalen Reagor, I will never be okay with that. That will never be a good thing as far as I'm concerned. But Sirianni yesterday said, yeah, that was the game plan. That's what we did. We wanted to attack their defense in this certain way. I'm not going to apologize for it. We didn't punt until our last possession. Okay, Nick, fine flex out of you. Jonathan Gannon, whatever it was, whatever they changed, it worked in the second half. And when he says he may not be more aggressive in some cases, If it's working, well, then, hey, more power to you. But ultimately, I think these players are going to want to get after the quarterback. I think they're going to want to force the quarterback into mistakes, especially like when Quentin Michael explained to us a couple of weeks ago that you could still play off the receiver, as you'll see some of these corners play off the receiver, 6, 7, 8 yards, 10 yards off the wide receiver. You can still play like that and be aggressive. Because what you're doing in that situation is setting yourself up to possibly jump a route and force a turnover with pressure in the backfield and then forcing an errant throw by a quarterback where a corner can come up and jump that route. That's what you're crossing your fingers for. And yes, it is a gamble. But every once in a while, when it's a team like the Jets, for instance, you might be able to capitalize on that type of gamble. Or maybe a team like Washington, who you're playing next week. Maybe that's an opportunity where you could force Tyler Heinicke into a mistake and be able to take it the other way. Because here's the thing. I know it's Washington, and I feel like every single year we look at Washington and we go, oh, Washington, what are they going to do there? Nothing. And then they won the division last year, albeit with Alex Smith as their quarterback. And then Heinicke playing in the playoffs. But you look at this Washington team, they're playing great football right now. Do I hope that the Eagles are the team that makes them crash back down to earth? Absolutely, I do. But if you could be aggressive in this game coming up in these 2 games against Washington, you might be able to get him on the run making mistakes, because I still don't believe he is as good as you have seen over the last 4 weeks. We've been able to put 4 wins together, the Washington football team. So as you watch that unfold, I think Jonathan Gannon is going to have to go through this week and next week. He's not leaving the NovaCare complex. He had a meeting with his own coaches. He had a meeting with Nick Sirianni, some meeting with his own people, and they're trying to figure out what the next steps are going up against Washington. They're not even sure how they're going to defend Terry McLaurin. We know that Darius Slay and Terry McLaurin have a little bit of a rivalry that McLaurin has the edge on, so we'll see how that works out. But they'll see how they attack this Washington football team's offense. And hopefully they'll do that in a way that will force some turnovers and help this Eagles team out, because when they've been able to punch the ball out, when they've been able to get after the quarterback, they've won football games, and hopefully that will continue.